It's been described as one of the darkest chapters of New South Wales history. The state premier has launched a judicial inquiry into dozens of gay and transgender hate crimes committed in Sydney over the course of 5 decades. Many of the deaths, which often saw men bashed and thrown off cliffs at popular gay beats, remain unresolved.
For upwards of half a century, their names and faces have piled up. Victims of disturbing bashings, disappearances and suspected murders. The heart of Sydney, the centre of a spate of hate crimes spanning decades against the LGBTIQ+ community.
When I was bashed in 1969, the guy who had me on the footpath, when he'd finished, he said, "No hard feelings, mate. No hard feelings, mate." For him, it was just a sport.
Well, this is a dark chapter in New South Wales' history.
The Perrottet government hoping to finally close that chapter, announcing a special commission of inquiry. Headed by Supreme Court Judge Justice John Sacker, it will examine the manner and cause of death in all unsolved suspected hate crime deaths investigated by New South Wales Police between 1970 and 2010. A key point of scrutiny, the 88 unsolved murders that sparked a police task force in 2013, which found it almost impossible to identify a gay hate bias.
This is something that should have happened a long time ago. The Special Commission of Inquiry will have the same powers as the Royal Commission to issue subpoenas, to summons witnesses for production of documents.
Among the raft of unsolved cases, Ross Warren, a 24-year-old newsreader from Wollongong who vanished from Marks Park, a notorious gay beat on the cliffs of Tamarama Beach in Sydney's east. His body was never found. John Russell, a barman, was found dead at the base of Marks Park later that year. Gilles Matani, a Frenchman living in Bondi, disappeared in 1985, last seen near that same coastal path. It took 17 years before he was reported missing. Cyril Olsen was savagely beaten before falling off the Rushcutters Bay Marina into Sydney Harbour in 1992. Raymond Keem, a father of 4, was bashed to death at a Randwick Park in 1987, his sexual orientation mistaken by his attacker.
We're almost running out of time in terms of getting the perpetrators. They are still walking amongst us, and they'll be very nervous today.
The government hoping to emulate the events of 2020, when a man was charged with the 1988 murder of American mathematician Scott Johnson. Such an inquiry comes 4 years after a parliamentary committee into gay and transgender hate crimes recommended one be formed. The 2018 report also delivered a scathing assessment of New South Wales Police, finding it was indifferent to such crimes at the time and failed in its responsibility to properly investigate them. Shane Mallard chaired the 2018 inquiry.
I was triggered in an inquiry. I'm a gay man. I got bashed up on Oxford Street one night. I thought it was a robbery. It wasn't until the inquiry occurred and we started hearing evidence about the modus operandi of assailants. So I realised I was a victim of a homophobic attack.
Author Gary Wotherspoon was bashed 3 times over the course of his life. He says police left him feeling humiliated after the first assault.
I think that was a very typical of the police attitudes at the time. We were less than humans. You know, it's a terrible thing that we were citizens, but not equal citizens.
The state's leading LGBTIQ+ groups have welcomed the inquiry, which is set to begin next month, with the first hearings likely by August, before the final report is delivered next year. Omar Dehen, SBS World News.